We are reading Ralph Waldo Trine, Book 3, Every Living Creature. Why to love and respect animals, art training through the animal world. It is said that in Japan, if one picks up a stone to throw at the dog will not run. As you will find, he will in almost every case here, because there the dog has never had a stone thrown at him, and consequently he does not know what it means. The spirit of gentleness, kindliness, and care for the animal world is a characteristic of the Japanese people. It in turn manifests itself in all of their relation with their fellow men. And one of the results is that the amount of crime committed there each year, in proportion to the population, is but a very small fraction of that committed in the United States. In India, where the treatment of the animal world is something to put to shame our own country, but let's remember that this book is old. Maybe nowadays it's not anymore like this. This book is being written I don't find when. Anyway, he was born in 1866. There, with a population of some 300 millions, there is about 1/4 the amount of crime that there is each year in England. Oh yes, they say less. With a population of some 20 millions, and only a fraction of what it is in the United States, with a population of no more than 1/4 the population of India. These are more significant facts. They are indeed facts of tremendous import, and we will do wisely to estimate them at their proper value. We cannot begin too early in inculcating what I will term human sentiments in the mind and heart of every individual. How early and almost unconsciously the mother, for example, gives the first lessons of thoughtfulness, carelessness, and what will eventually result in cruelty or even crime to her child. The child is put upon the hobby horse. A whip is put into his little hand and he is told, well, nowadays not anymore because carriages are not anymore. Now whip the old horse and make him go. With these initial lessons, continued in various ways, we find the eager desire the child has for whipping. When he gets the whip into his hands in a wagon behind the real horse, or even, she was not talking of a toy. Or even when younger, the child stumbles over a chair, receives a knock, and bursts into crying. The mother, in some cases, merely thoughtless, in others, caring only for her own comfort and ease, in others, to call the attention of the child away from the little heart and greater rage and fright, says, "Did you mean chair, art mamma's little boy? Go and kick the old chair, kick it hard." The next day, when the child falls over or bumps against the dog in turn is the one to receive the kick. And still later, when anything of the kind occurs in connection with a little playmate, the playmate receives the same treatment. And so far as his relations with his fellow men, when he is grown to manhood, are concerned, each one can trace them for himself. We have sketched the thoughtless or the selfish mother. Let us look for a moment at the... It's not yes, it's thoughtless. I will not say selfish. Usually people, they don't even think about it. We have sketched the thoughtless or the... Let us look for a moment at the other type of mother. The one who is ever thoughtful, desirous of bringing the best influence to bear upon this little sensitive plate, if you will allow the expression. The mother, who understands the great, almost omnipotent forming power of early impressions. The child stumbles over or falls against the chair. The mother, after smoothing the heart, plays and kissing away the first impulse to anger, and also the fright of the child, and thereby his tears, say, "And now I wonder if mamma's little boy has hurt the chair, Go bring him to Mama and let her smooth away its heart also. This is cute. This is done the first time. This is the second time that I read it, but the first time I thought that it was really cute. This is done, and all is now as if nothing had occurred. The next day, then, when the child stumbles over or bumps against the dog, after he had had his own heart soothed by his mother, he in turn toddles off to soothe and comfort the dog. And again, when the child bumps against his little playfellow, after he has been soothed and kissed and thereby comforted by his mother, he feels for and sympathizes with the other little fellow and brings him to receive the same treatment. And again, each one can for himself carry the effects of this type of suggestion and training into the child's later life and into his relations with his fellow men. Many instances of this nature in the everyday life of the mother and child might be mentioned, and to go back even farther, those mothers who are beginning to understand the powerful molding influences of prenatal conditions we realize that every mental and emotional state lived in by the mother makes its influence felt in the life of the forming child, and she will therefore be careful that during the period she is carrying the child, no thoughts or emotions of anger or hatred or envy or malice, no kind thoughts of any kind be entertained by her, but on the contrary, thoughts of tenderness, kindness, compassion, and love. These, then, will influence and lead the mind of the child when born, and will in turn externalize their effects in his body, instead of allowing to be externalized the poisoning and destructive effects of their opposites. Art training. It is an established fact that the training of the intellect alone is not sufficient. Nothing in this world can be truer than that the education of the head without the training of the heart simply increases one's power for evil, while the education of the heart, along with the head, increases one's powers for good, and this indeed is the true education. Clearly, we must begin with the child. The lessons learned in childhood are the last to be forgotten. The potter molds the clay only when it is soft. In a little while, when it begins to harden, he has no more power over it. So it is with the child. The first principle of conduct instilled into his mind, planted within his heart, take root and grow. And as he grows from childhood to youth, and from youth to manhood, these principles become fixed. They exert their influence. Scarcely any power in existence can change them. They cling to him through life. They decide his destiny. How important, then, that these first principles implanted within the child's heart be lessons of gentleness, kindness, mercy, love, and humanity, and not lessons of hatred, envy, selfishness, and malice. The former make ultimately our esteemed, law-abiding, law-loving citizens, the latter lawbreakers and criminals. Upon the training of the children of today depends the condition of our country a generation hence. In crimes against the person, the passions play the most important part, and this is true also even in many crimes against property. How important it is, then, that the child be taught to govern his passions, how important that he be taught to be kind, gentle, loving, and human. And in all the range of human thought, there is not a better, wiser, or more expedient way of accomplishing this end than by teaching kindness towards God's lower creatures. These rumors in my kitty, coughing. If children are taught, they will have instilled into their hearts those principles of action which will make them kind and merciful not only to the lower animals, but also towards their fellow men as they attain to manhood. Let them be taught that the lower animals are God's creatures, as they themselves are, put here by a common Heavenly Father, each for its own special purpose, and that they have the same right to life and protection. Let them be taught that principle recognized by all noble-hearted men, that it is only a depraved, debased, and cowardly nature that will endure an inferior, defenseless creature, simply because it is in its power to do so, and that there is no better, no grander test of true bravery and nobility of character than one's treatment of the lower animals. It is impossible to overestimate the benefits resulting from judicious human instruction. The child who has been taught nothing of mercy, nothing of humanity, who has never been brought to realize the claims that animals have upon him for protection and kindness, will grow up to be thoughtless and cruel toward them. And if he is cruel to them, that same heart, untouched by kindness and mercy, will prompt him to be cruel to his family, to his fellow men. On the other hand, the child who has been taught to realize the claims that God's lower creature have upon him, whose heart has been touched by lessons of kindness and mercy, under the sweet influence will grow to be a large-hearted, tender-hearted, manly man. Then let the children be trained, their hands, their intellects, and above all, their hearts. When I was little, I have yet said in a video that my dad told me. Uh, Me and my friend were using to play around ants, and he told me like to treat those little ants good and to observe them that they were really good and they were bringing their little things on their shoulders, etc. Let them be taught to have pity for the animals that are at our mercy, that cannot protect themselves, that cannot explain their weakness, their pain, or their suffering, and soon this will bring to their recognition that higher law, the moral obligation of man as a superior being to protect and care for the weak and the defenseless. Nor will it stop here, for this is in turn will lead them to that highest law, man's duty to man. Hunting. So great, do I believe, are the influences of the inculcation of human sentiments early in the life of every individual that I shall endeavor to make as concrete as possible the suggestions which are to follow, for criminal training or human training can be and is continually given in numbers of ways. As a parent, in the first place, I will teach the child the thoughtlessness, the selfishness, the heartlessness, the cruelty of hunting for sport. I so much agree. I will put into his hands no air guns or instruments or weapons by which he could inflict torture upon or take the life of birds or other animals. Instead of encouraging him in torturing or killing the birds, I will point out to him the great service they are continually doing for us in the destruction of various worms and insects and small rodents which, if left to themselves, will so multiply as literally to destroy practically all fruit and plant life. I will have him remember how many lives are enriched and beautified by their song. I will point out to him their habits of industry, their marvelous power of adaptation, their insight and perseverance. Therefore, I will teach him to love, to study, to care for, and feed them. Hunting for sport indicates one or two things: a nature of such thoughtlessness as to be almost inexcusable, or a selfishness so deplorable as to be unworthy a normal sane human being. No truly thoughtful manly man or truly thoughtful womanly woman will engage in it. And when we read of this or that woman, be she well known in society or the wife of this or that well known man, so following her selfish, savage, cruel instincts, or her desire for notoriety or newspaper comments, as to take part in a deer hunt, a fox chase. Let's remember that it's 1866, this man born. A fox chase or in a hunt of any type, you have an index to a real character that shall be sufficient. But a few days ago my attention was called to a minister in one of the New England cities who had come out in the papers with an article on hunting as a most excellent pastime and recreation for the members of his calling, and urged them to take it up as he already had. Think of it, what it means. A man who has gotten no farther into the real spirit of the gentle and compassionate teaching of God, whom he professes to follow, to say nothing of the human teaching of the gentle Buddha, whom this reverend gentleman would, by the way, refer to in his pulpit and his prayer meetings as the heathen. Shall we refrain from saying inexcusable thoughtlessness or brutal, deplorable selfishness? I cannot refrain in this connection from quoting a sentence or two from Archdeacon Farrar, which have recently come to my notice. Not once or twice only, at the seaside, have I come across a sad and disgraceful sight, a sight which haunts me still, a number of armless seabirds lying defaced and dead upon the sand, their white plumage red with blood, as they have been tossed there, dead or half dead, their torture and massacre having furnished a day's amusement to heartless and senseless men. Amusement! I say execrable amusement. All killing for mere killing's sake is execrable amusement. Can you imagine the stupid callousness, the utter insensibility to mercy and beauty of the man who, seeing those bright, beautiful creatures as their white, immaculate wings flash in the sunshine over the blue waves, can go out in a boat with his boys to teach them to become brutes in character, to finding amusement, I say again, dishumanizing amusement, by wantonly murdering these fair birds of God, or cruelly wounding them, and letting them fly away to wait and die in lonely places? And another paragraph, which was sent me by a kind friend to our fellow creatures a few days ago. The celebrated Russian novelist Turgenev tells a most touching incident from his own life, which awakened in him sentiments that have colored all his writings with a deep and tender feeling. When Turgenev was a boy of 10, his father took him out one day bird shooting. As they tramped across the brown stubble, a golden peasant rose with a low whir from the ground at his feet. And, with the joy of a sportsman throbbing through his veins, he raised his gun and fired, wild with excitement when the creature fell fluttering at his side. Life was ebbing fast, but the instinct of the mother was stronger than death itself, and with a feeble flutter of her wings, the mother bird reached the nest. Oh, this is such a sad thing! It makes me almost cry. Where a young bird were huddled, unconscious of danger. Then, with such a look of pleading and reproach that his heart stood still at the ruin he had wrought, and never to his dying day did he forget the feelings of cruelty and guilt that came to him in that moment. The little brown head toppled over. Oh, this is such a sad thing. And only the dead body of the mother sheltered her nestling. Oh my God. Father, father, he cried, what I have done, as he turned his horror-stricken face to his father, but not to his father's eyes at this little tragedy being enacted, and he said, well done, my son, that was well done for your first shot. You will soon be a fine sportsman. Never, father, never again shall I destroy any living creature. If that is part, I will have none of it. Life is more beautiful to me than death, and since I cannot give life, I will not take it. Oh. It was really sad song. I have tears, sad thing. I have tears in my eyes. And so, instead of putting into the hands of the child a gun or any other weapon that may be instrumental in crippling, torturing, or taking the life of even a single animal, I will give him the field glass and the camera and send him out to be a friend to the animals, to observe and study their characteristics, their habits, to learn from them those wonderful lessons that can be learned, and to have his whole nature expand in admiration and love and care for them, and become thereby the truly manly and princely type of man, rather than the careless, callous, brutal type. Vivisection. Another practice, let us consider, that is clearly hardening in its influence a practice the children and older students are here and there called upon to witness. I refer to the practice commonly known as vivisection. I don't know if in America or even in here they still do it. I hope no, I guess yes. They shouldn't. If they are, well, yet dead animals, but I don't think they will take yet dead animals. The cutting, freezing, burning, tearing, torturing of live animals for purposes of scientific investigation. After making a most careful study of this matter and his claims, getting the opinions of many of the ablest physicians and surgeons in the world, I have been forced to come to the conclusion that practically nothing of any real value has come to us through the channel they call not and will not have come in other ways without this great torture and sacrifice of life, to say nothing of the cruel and hardening effects upon those who resorted to these methods. Personally, I should allow no child of mine to attend or remain at any school where it is carried on. It would be indeed a really, really great thing to have super wise parents. To be born with yet super wise parents as him. And moreover, I should raise my voice and exert my influence against it at every opportunity. I shall teach the child the great fact that we are so rapidly learning today, namely, that the mind is the natural protector of the body, and that there are being continually externalized in the body effects and conditions most akin to our prevailing mental states and emotions. I shall teach him that it is unwise as well as cowardly to bring disease conditions into the body through the poisoning, corroding effects of anger, hatred, malice, envy, rage, fear, worry, lust, intemperance, and then seek to find an aid to the remedy to the torture, or even a single dumb fellow creature. Docking. In the next place, as an object lesson, I shall point out to the child what is indicated at the sight of a dog-tailed horse. It indicates one of two things: weakness of individuality and hence slavery to custom, or that all too prevalent vain desire through parade to attract attention, because the owner of the animal is conscious of the fact that there is not enough in himself to attract it, and also because he is utterly devoid of those finer sensibilities of the heart through whose promptings one is restrained from all acts of cruelty and torture, from all acts that will give pain to any living creature. I will point out to the child that the torture that is inflicted upon the animal during the process of the sewing and the burning of the tail, and also that this acute pain and torture is but little compared with the after torture that is to follow during the balance of the horse's life. The skin of the horse is exceedingly sensitive to the bites and the stings of the flies and other pestiferous insects that harass him during the heated term of the year, and which, without his natural weapon of defense, make his life almost unendurable. I will point out to the child how cruelly the animal is maimed for life, and how foolhardily his beauty is forever destroyed. The practice has already by statute been made a crime in a number of states, punishable by both fine and imprisonment. I guess nowadays it is not possible. But still, the idiotic, cruel, and deplorable practice goes on to a greater or less extent, and not until public sentiment is truly aroused against it will it entirely cease. If the one who has it done were compelled to stand for but half a day in the hot summer weather, with his back bare to the bites and the stings of the flies and sweet bees and other insects that will drive him almost frantic, if his hands were so fastened that he could not drive them away, then he might be brought partially at least to his senses. And when the fine sensitive horse whose tail had been sawn off in this way, so that he was one day driven almost to madness by the stings and bites he was powerless to protect himself from, especially as he was further maddened by that fiendish device of torture. The high-check Trine finally became unmanageable and dashed down the road and ran away, hurling his owner to death and his wife to the bed of an invalid and cripple. It may seem unkind to say it, but it certainly served them right. They reaped only what they themselves had sown, as everyone must in some form or another, for such is the law of the universe. Cattle transport. And again, as an object lesson, I will point out to the child the men which here engage in cattle starving on our western plains. For on the various ranches, thousands of head of cattle in cold winters starve and freeze to death, because left to themselves when they can no longer find sufficient food on the range. This plan being adopted by many cattle raisers because it's cheaper for them to lose a certain portion of the earth each winter than it is to furnish them suitable food and shelter. This practice obviously there is no more. Thousands of cattle have so perished during the past winter. I was sure that such a man is a criminal and deserves restraint as such, no less than a man who will cause a part of his stock to starve to death in a stable or on a farm. I will teach the child the same in regard to those responsible for the careless, cruel, mercenary methods of transporting cattle, sheep and horses from the west to the east, or to England and other countries, so through this. In cattle ships, where sometimes as many as a quarter or even a third of the animals are found dead on their arrival, and numbers of others so mangled and crippled that they have to be killed as soon as they are taken from the vessel. Dress and fashion. There is another excellent opportunity for human teaching, and one that comes especially near to every woman. It lies in the thoughtless, cruel, and inexcusable practice of wearing the skins and plumage of birds for millinery and other decorative purposes. But indeed, nowadays, even the leather, they are allowed just the fake leather. It doesn't come now to my mind the name, the fake fur, let's say, is not allowed anymore, the coat of true fur. At least I hope, everywhere. The enormous proportions of this traffic are simply appalling. In the course of a single day last year in London, and from a single auction store, the skins of 600,000 birds were sold. This number represented the sales of one store of one city in a single day. Millions of birds are destroyed annually to supply the demands that fashion vendors, who became wealthy thereby, have created in the minds of women for this purpose. One species of birds have already become practically extinct by this wholesale slaughter, while others are rapidly becoming so. For example, the beautiful bird, the white heron, commonly known as the egret, in Florida, but one can now be seen here and there by the tourists where thousands could be seen but a few years ago. This bird is killed and his plumage taken only at that season of the year when his dress becomes a little more brilliant than usual, for it is his nesting time, and nature seems to be recognizing this, the marriage season, by preparing for it his wedding garments. Cinci! No, no! Cinci, amore, no! The birds at this season are apparently very innocent of harm, and very tame, and are found near together taking care of their young. At times, hundreds of birds are to be found near together in one roost, among the tall trees of the swamp lands, so that the bird catcher finds his. Cosa fai lui? An easy task to conceal himself and pick them off as they are returning to their nest with food for their young. My chinchilla is playing with a little toy. No, amore. Sometimes to the extent of several hundreds in a single day. And every bird killed at this season means the starving of death on the average of 4 or 5 of its young. It behooves every human, then, who wears even a single egret plume, to remember she has been the cause of the sacrifice of at least 4 or 5 birds. But, says the gentle lady, I have nothing to do with the killing of the birds. Yes, if you buy. True, you not do with it personally, you will not wear what you now wear. But why not? For multitudes of ladies like yourself, Bill Jones, Borcatcher will turn his mind and energies to other avenues, for he will no longer have a demand and hence a market each year to supply. I know one bird catcher who, with his assistant, in a single season, slaughtered and took the skins of over 130,000 birds. Think what this means when we take into consideration the few days of the very short season devoted to this. And what does this indicate in women? I will not be unfair, so we say that to me it indicates chiefly thoughtfulness and lack of imagination on her part. If the Ton, who now decorates herself with the plumage of her slaughtered fellow creature, could be on the spot with Bill Jones and see the crimson life blood that the bleeding heart is pulsing out, staining even the feathers that she herself will wear, she could see the agonies of the death struggle, and then see the gaping mouths of the starving young ones in the nest, waiting in vain for the return. This is so sad. The return of the parent bird with food, then I am sure she will no longer be a victim to this foolish, thoughtless, artless habit. No, I have too much respect for and faith in the finer sensibilities of women to believe that she would. Once in a while, it is true, we will find a woman so wrapped up in her vain, selfish, insane desire for show that, notwithstanding the realization on her part of all we have just said, she would nevertheless demand this sacrifice to minister to her vanity. I don't think women know what it is. Where I am a woman, I certainly should want to be among the forerunners in the movement that has already begun along this line. I would rather be a leader in setting a good fashion, true, than a follower of a poor and positively bad one. And you will be surprised what beautiful hats and bonnets can be devised by the woman of a little ingenuity without the height of bird's plumage or feathers of any kind. And when skilful minds and hands are once turned in this direction, we shall wonder that this relic of barbarism, mode of adornment, even though it be a somewhat modified form of it, has lasted so long. As a mother, I will keep or lead my daughter out of this artless and needless practice by first abandoning it myself. Children are so quick to see inconsistencies. Said the little fellow to his mates the other day. I know why teachers don't want us to rob the bird's nest and kill the little birds. She wants them to grow up so she can wear them on her bonnet. And when one sees, as I have seen, a teacher with the skins of two and the feathers of more birds on a rat, we will realize that after all, teaching by example is better than by precept, or putting it in other form, teaching by precept without its being reinforced by example is of but little value. But for the people's sakes, as well as if not even more than for the birds, I will urge attention to an action along this line. The tender and human passion in the human heart is too precious a quality to allow it to be hardened or effaced by practices such as we so often indulge in. Even from an economic standpoint, the service that birds render us every year, so far as vegetation is concerned, is literally beyond computation. Were they all killed off, the world will soon become practically uninhabitable for man, because vegetation each year will be so truly blighted or even consumed by the hordes of insects a world infested. It is but necessary to realize how rapidly, even during the past several years, insect life has been increasing in some quarters, so as to tax to the utmost the skill of the farmer, the gardener, and the fruit grower. Instead, then, of schooling the child to be the destroyer of bird life, let be guided along the lines of being his lover and his protector. And if those who use them, women especially, could know and fully realize the cruel and at times almost unspeakable cruelty and torture that attends the procuring of their skin and other fur or fur-trimmed or lined garments, I am sure that many at least will begin quietly to look about for garments made of other materials. If they could know of the seals being clubbed, nowadays not bearing animals, that are trapped, remaining for hours or even at times for days, with leg or legs crushed between the trap's cruel and relentless steel jaws, before the merciful blow comes that is to end their torture, when it has not already died from his torture or from starvation, or has not gnawed his leg from the trap with its own teeth in order to escape, if the cold be brought fully to realize these facts, I am sure they will conclude that these articles are bought with a price greater than any human being can afford to pay. Flesh as food. I guess it talks about being vegetarian. A word now in regard to another matter. Me personally, I eat fish. I don't eat other meat. Just cause and eggs. For a long time, I just eat an eggs. But since lately, I had the skin really a little bit dry, and I have a little bit even of dermatitis. I was trying other food to make my skin, let's say, more healthy. And so I tried to eat the fish for the omega oil, and I see that it's better. I don't know if it's for that. Because all my life I really eaten few animal protein, just the eggs. I just wanted to try if it's for that reason. I cannot eat normal meat because I really feel bad, but the fish, well. At least they are not, especially the little ones, smart as the art animals. A word now in regard to another matter that is of far more importance than is generally supposed, the matter of the excessive flesh eating that is continually going on in our country. After looking carefully into the matter, and after some years' experiences in its non-use, I can state without hesitancy that, contrary to the prevailing opinion, the flesh of animals is not necessary as an article of food, but few are better off for its use, while the great majority are the worse off for it, and especially is this true when it is so excessively used as we find it now on every hand. We shall find numerous articles of food as we study the matter that, so far as body nourishing, building, and sustaining qualities are concerned, contain twice, and in some cases over twice, as much as any flesh food that can be mentioned. Sorry. The liability to mistake in this matter lies in the fact that flesh foods, when taken into the stomach, burn oxygenize more quickly than most other foods do, and the short stimulating effect, resembling more or less the stimulating effect of alcohol, is mistaken for a body nourishing and sustaining effect. Flesh foods stimulate the passions, and more acting as a stimulant in the body, they call for other stimulants to feed and satisfy the appetites thus aroused. And some of the world's most eminent physicians, who have looked carefully into the matter, are declaring that the excessive amount of whiskey and beer drinking, with its attendant drunkenness and crime, will never be done away with or materially lessened so long as this excessive eating of flesh continues. Numerous other things, such as the irritability it causes in the natures of large numbers of people who use it, The almost unconscious blunting of many of the finer senses, as also the dangers attending its use on account of the diseased or poisoned condition of meats in many cases, are worthy of a very serious consideration. If space permitted, many facts regarding the exceedingly large number of diseased animals that are actually sold in the form of meat, facts as reported by various boards of inquiry, various commissions, etc., might be cited. And who can tell when such may be not be the condition of that of which he himself is partaking? And when we remember the vast numbers of animals, cattle especially, that are hungered almost to desperation, in some cases literally maddened by hunger, and when we remember the peculiar poison that reaches every part of the body when the mind is too hungered, and that in this state large numbers of animals are killed, we can readily see how important this aspect of the matter is. Why is not flesh eating natural? I hear it asked. Does not man in his primitive savage state make use of flesh naturally? Do not animals devour one another? Yes, but we are not savages, nor are we purely animals, and it is time for us to have outgrown this attendant of savage life custom. I so much love this man. The truth of the matter is that considerably more than one half of the people in the world today are not flesh eaters. And many peoples, or large numbers in America and in England, for example, referred to as the heathen and send missionaries to Christianize, are far ahead of us and hence more Christian in this matter. And one reason why missionaries in many parts of India, among the Buddhists and Brahmins, for example, have been so comparatively unsuccessful in their work is because the majority of those keen-minded and spiritually unfolded people cannot see what superiority there is in the religion of the one whom it allows to kill, cook, and feast upon the bodies of his or her fellow creatures, which they themselves call not do. In Bombay, to have the carcasses of animals exposed to public view, as we see them in the stores and markets here, and at times scores of them decorating their windows and entire fronts, is prohibited by law. No, experience will teach you that if you do away with flesh eating and get in its place the other valuable foods, the time will quickly come when you will care less and less for it. Then again, the time will come when you will have no desire for it, and finally, you will grow positively to dislike it and its effect, and nothing can induce you to return again to the flesh pots. And as for those who think that the ones who are not flesh eaters are necessarily weaklings, I should like to match a friend of mine, an instructor in one of our great American universities, who for over 18 years has eaten no flesh foods. I should like to match him with anyone they may send forward when it comes to a test of long continued work and endurance. In London, there are already numbers of restaurants where no flesh foods are served. In Berlin, there are already about 20, and their number in these, as well as in numerous other cities, is continually increasing. It is a matter of but a short time when there will be numbers of such in our own country. The only really consistent humanitarian is the one who is not a flesh eater, and great I am satisfied will be the results both to the human family and to the animal race as children are wisely taught and judiciously directed along this line. When one goes into the better restaurants, where no flesh foods are served, in England and Germany for example, he is impressed with the foundationless excuse of so many people then that it is hard or even impossible to get along without flesh foods. In the other realms will be found an abundance 100 or 1,000 times over, and especially when we begin to give some little attention to the great varieties of most valuable foods there and to the exceedingly appetizing ways in which they can be prepared. One reason why such large numbers of people feel that meat is a necessity, or almost a necessity with them as an article of food, is because in our hotels and restaurants and cafes, and in fact, in the majority of our homes, the meat element forms the chief portion of the foods prepared for our tables, and to it practically all the skills in preparation is given, while the other things are looked upon more as accessories, and are many times prepared in an exceedingly careless manner, much as mere accessories will be. But with the decreasing use of flesh foods, and with more attention given to the skillful preparation of the large numbers of other still more valuable foods, we shall begin to wonder why we have so long been slaves to a mere custom, thinking it a necessity. An eminent Hindu has presented some truths along the lines of non-flesh eating so oblige, that I yield to the impulse to quote from him quite a length. Oh my god, it's such long this. Let's go on to another chapter. We have understood what it means for this. The next one, it is homes for animals. Much among us is done for men, little as yet for the animal. There are among us almost innumerable hospitals and homes for men and women, but there is very little of this nature as yet for the animals. As yet, there is a home or a rescue league for animals only here and there. We need them more abundantly. We need homes and rescue leagues and clinics and hospitals for them as we need them for ourselves. And where there is one animal home today, there will be, I am sure, scores or even hundreds in time to come. In far off, Bombay is probably the largest, he mentioned Bombay often, is probably the largest and most elaborate hospitals for animals in the world. It has both its impatiens and its outpatients, and it ministers to animals of all kinds as carefully as human beings are administered to it to in the hospitals of the West. Over 2,000 animals are taken into the hospital each year, and well on to 1,000 are treated as outpatients. In all, there are some 40 buildings, large and small, connected with the hospital, and the architectural structure and the appointments of some of them are indeed superior to those of many of our regular hospitals. This splendid hospital for animals was founded by a native Indian, a Parsi merchant. It is called Bhai Sakarbai Din's Au Petit Hospital for Animals, and receives its support from large numbers of citizens of Bombay who are interested in its beneficent work. Not only domestic animals of every kind are treated and cared for in it, but the animals of the jungle and the wild birds which are found wounded or suffering from any cause are taken to it and nursed back to health and then set free again. The hospital is the pride of Bombay, and the Hindus are very liberal in their contribution to it. When endowing the laboratory, Sirdins Howe made the express stipulation that no vivisection should be practiced in it, love it, for the reason that the same will wound the feelings of Hindus from what material support is obtained for the hospital, and if they come to know of it, they will at once discontinue their support and the hospital, with thereby suffering their respect. This is the frank and childlike reason given by Sirdins Howe in one of the sections of the document by which he created the trust for their laboratory. In addition to this splendid hospital for animals, there is in Bombay an influential society for the prevention of cruelty to animals. There is also the Pinirapol, a place where worn out or diseased animals are sent to be cared for until they are restored to health or until they die. Near Calcutta, there is also a similar institution established some 13 years ago by a society of influential Hindus. It is true that the mysterious lower world of animal life is regarded in India with more reverence and kindness than anywhere else. The one great fact of abstinence from flesh food produces an extraordinary effect among Hindu communities. Or any such a newly arrived European working in Baroda or Nasik or any such Brahmanic capital will mark we wonder how the lower creatures have understood and acted upon this tacit compact of peace. In the densest portions of the town, the monkeys sit and chatter on the roof ridges, the stray squirrels race up and down the shop walls, the green parrots fly screaming about the streets, the doves perch and coo and nest everywhere. The flying foxes the flying foxes, I guess they are the sugar gliders. And over the most frequented wells and tanks, the mongoose scurries in and out of the garden gates. The kites and crows frequent the marketplaces. Jungle doves and birds of all sorts forage boldly for food, and at night even the jackals steal impudently down into the suburbs. There is a great fixed peace between man and his inferiors in the scale of creation, and the effect of this to any lover of nature is certainly charming. Here, let me quote a few sentences from a Hindu writer and teacher, personally known to and honored by many in America and in England. When Hindu boys and girls go to school and read their first lessons, they learn the highest humanitarian principles. And as they grow older, they are kind towards all living creatures. They are taught, be kind to lower animals, do not kill them for your food because the natural food of man is not an animal. I learned in the first book of Sanskrit, when enough of nourishment can easily be obtained from that which grows spontaneously on the heart, who will commit such a great sin as to kill animals for filling his stomach and deriving a little pleasure of taste. Sanskrit, I want to read it. Each one of these animals possesses a soul, has individuality and a sense of I, can feel pleasure and pain, has fear of death, and struggles to live. The germ of life in each one of these will gradually pass through the various stages of evolution and ultimately appear in a human form. Therefore, the religion, philosophy, and scripture of the Hindus teach that as life is dear to us, so is it dear to the lower animals. As we do not wish to be killed, so they too shrink from death. Do not kill any animal for pleasure, so harmony in nature, see harmony in nature, and a helping hand to all living creature. Say the Hindu scripture. I want to read these scriptures. Whenever we kill any animal for our food or pleasure, we are selfish. It is on account of extreme selfishness that we do not recognize the rights of other animals, and that we try to nourish, nay, use ourselves by killing innocent creatures, or by injuring them, or by depriving them of their rights. This kind of selfishness is the mother of all evil thoughts and weak deeds. That which makes us selfish and helps us to cling to our lower self is degrading and weak. That which leads us towards unselfishness is elevating and virtuous. That which prevents us from realizing the oneness of spirit is wrong. That which opens our spiritual eyes and helps us to see that divinity is expressing itself through the forms of lower animals and makes us love them as we love our own self is godly. In the light of all the foregoing facts, we can see that we have much to learn in our relations. We have much to learn in our relations with the animals world from the people. They have grasped far more fully than we the great fact of the universe, namely the essential unity, the essential oneness of life. When we have fully grasped this great fact, and when we live fully in accordance with it, then our civilization will become a symmetrical civilization. It will become all round and complete, and not the one-sided and at times questionable civilization it is at present. It will then be a blessing to all the peoples of the earth, and not as it is so often today in some respects, a veritable curse and cause of degradation to them. For it will revolutionize in many respects our relations and our dealings with them. It will also serve to make perpetual that which, if we are not careful, may be merely transitory, just as proved in the cases of many apparently strong and powerful nations before us. Let's follow the injunction of one of the speakers at a meeting of the Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in a city of what some term a eaten country, when in urging an increase of the society membership to at least 50,000, he called upon the people to write mercy in the woods where the wild deer runs, and in the air where our birds fly, and all along the paths where our children and our youths pass to and fro. Our humane education societies, our societies for the prevention of cruelty to animals, as well as our few clinics and hospitals and homes for animals, are receiving support from the best types of men and women, but they need a still greater and a far more universal support than they are at present receiving. Interest along this line is growing, however, and I think the time is rapidly coming when men and women of means in making bequests for the founding or the maintaining of institutions, we think of making them for the animal world as readily as they now think of making them for the human world. And still more, the wiser, the kindlier, and the more far-seeing among us will give liberally to the support of every institution, every movement that has for its work human art training, so that there will be less need for last resorts, so that in coming time prevention will take the place of distress and suffering. It is simply a steering of thought that is needed. Practically, all cases of cruelty and ill usage and all careless treatment arise through thoughtlessness, or have at least their beginnings in thoughtlessness. We must learn to sympathize with the animals about us. We must realize that they love life just as we love it, that they suffer just as we suffer, that they are hurt by harshness and treats as we are hurt by them, that they are influenced by our thoughts as we are influenced by the thoughts of one another, that they love kindly treatment and that they appreciate it as we do ourselves, that they love and form attachment just as we do. Then the next one was previous, but I jumped it. I want to read still this all about animals. There are still another chapter. Treatment of criminals. He still talks about animals. In the degree that moral, art, human training finds its place among us as a people, in the degree shall we come near a wise and human method of treatment, so far as the more unfortunate ones among us, one we denominate by the term criminal, is concerned. It is a well-known fact that we have not as yet found the true method of dealing with this our friends. Let's remember that this is a book, this man is 66. Our methods deal too much with punishment and not enough with unfoldment and thereby prevention. Our methods, in the long run, tend to make criminals and to perpetuate criminals rather than to prevent them or to transform them into law-abiding and honorable citizens. When a man makes a mistake that any of us might have made, and that possibly under like conditions many of us would have made, the spirit of punishment for the sake of punishment, even to the extent of revenge, so holds us as a people that we truly share in the wrongdoing of the one whom we condemn and injure, when by another, a more sane, a more thoughtful, a more kindly and common sense method, we will be instrumental in bringing about a set of conditions which, instead of perpetuating the man as a criminal, will make him an honor and a blessing to the community in which he lives. This man is so wise. Likewise, when through misfortune or broken health, an inability to find work, and many times in a starving condition, a man or a woman is compelled to find entrance to the workhouses in England, In many, at least, he is treated more as a beast or as an inanimate object than as a human being. He who enters this must, as a rule, leave all hopes for love and kindly and sympathetic treatment behind. And this, indeed, is the reason why so many deliberately take their own lives rather than enter them. And yet it is England who prides herself upon being the world's greatest empire, nation, mission it is, if not and shall, her leaders will tell you, to carry the blessing of a God civilization to the inferior peoples of the world. When we once begin to understand that ignorance is at the bottom of all wrongdoing, of all sin and error and crime, with their attendant sufferings and losses, then we shall begin to realize that sympathy and compassion, and consequently kindly treatment of punishment and revenge, is necessary if we will truly hide one who has stumbled. The system in vogue today will make and will perpetuate criminals. They will not transform a wrongdoer into a strong, sympathetic, and honest man or woman. They may make him or her a greater danger to society, but they will never make him or her an aid to the community, or an aid in the bringing about a higher state of life and civilization in the community, as practically every one of such can be made. In the work of the George Union Republic, we have an evidence of what can be accomplished when work is begun from the right side. And if boys can be reached so effectively by these methods, certainly men and women can be also. During a single year recently, 160,000 cases in round numbers were committed to prison in England and Wales. Of this number, over 61,000, considerably more than a third, were committed for a week or less. Now, under a more enlightened system of penal law, most of these cases need not and should not have come to prison at all. In the matter of imprisonment, it is so often that it is the first step, the first commitment, which counts and which eventually evolves a criminal future. Of these 61,000 cases and over, a very large number were first offenders, and many were imprisoned for but 3 or 4 days. How often it has been said by one whose life has been one of the criminal caste, if I hadn't got there 3 or 4 days of that week when a boy, how different my whole life would have been. If therefore we will prevent having a criminal class, we must do everything in our power to prevent unnecessary additions to it. The meaningless, unnecessary, and deplorable degradation that so often accompany the treatment of prisoners are worthy of the most reserved condemnation. There is enough degradation, God knows, accompanying the entrance to prison life in itself without any studied addition to it. When, through studied efforts, or the blind and brainless following of bad precedent on the part of prison officials, it is made next to impossible for one in prison to receive frank and open-hearted kindness. And when thereby it is made impossible for him spontaneously to give kindness, then no more successful steps in the process of perpetuating him as a criminal could be taken. Instead of wise, Christ-like steps to awaken, to feed, and to foster these greatest of art qualities, hand in hand with self-respect from the very first crushing blows, are given for its total destruction. Little wonder is it, then, that so often the offender comes out of prison with that deep and sullen hatred of all established order that makes him more dangerous to himself and to society at large than ever before. Any system of penal law and prison disciplines or treatment that does not give a man or a woman back to the world better than he or she entered the prison gates is one greatly to be deplored. Here and there, however, there are brave and able men and women, strong with wit and with great love in their natures, who are giving themselves to this work and who are quietly and gradually leading us into a better day. And as better social and more equal industrial conditions for the great mass of the people come about, and as a more vital human heart training for all classes, from the so-called highest to the so-called lowest, takes its place among us, then this great and constant problem will be already to a great extent solved. We need more sympathy in all of our relations in everyday life, individual and national, and any methods of punishment that have in them the elements of resentment and revenge, in distinction from being restraining, educational, and uplifting, are truly anti-Christian, to say nothing of their being wise, inexpedient, and expensive. Who shall accuse and who shall condemn? Certainly no wise man or woman, and certainly the unfortunate ones among us shall not be in the hands of those who are then wise. The time was not so very long ago when the insane were treated much as our criminals are treated today, treated as if they were to blame. A wiser spirit, however, prevails in regard to this unfortunate class among us, and insanity is now looked upon as a form of mental disease, not as a wilful perversion of one's natural self. The wiser among us, who have given time and attention to the study of the criminal classes and the best methods of hiding them, are recognizing, I don't know why he has put this among the treatment of animals, because I guess even this influence are recognizing that there is such a thing as moral disease, such as we have come into the realization of the fact that there is such a thing as mental disease. And when those whom we call criminals are treated in accordance with these facts, then we shall begin to witness a great chance for the better in our present methods. Sympathy must be brought about so far as our relations with one another, and so far as our relations with the animal world, or now it talks about, are concerned. Every living creature must be looked upon, respected, and treated as a living creature, and not as a mere thing, not as something that is merely to serve our own purposes, with no right of any claims upon us in return. Do you know the story of the caged thrush? A stanza comes to my mind. Alas for the bird who was born to sing. They have made him a cage, they have clipped his wings, they have shut him up in a dingy street, and they praise him singing and call it sweet. But his heart and his song are saddened and filled with the woods and the nest he never will build, and the wild young dawn coming to the tree, and the mate that never his mate will be. Oh, this is so sad. And day by day, when his notes are hurt, they freshen the street by alas for the bird. The golden rule must be applied in our relations with the animal world, just as it must be applied in our relations with our fellow men. Or even truly deserve the name of man or woman, this rumor is my pity, coughing, until this finds embodiment in his or her life. Even worms are our helpers, and it will be absolutely impossible, so far as the right conditions in the ground are concerned, to get along without them. We are their debtors to a vast extent, and were it not for the birds, practically all vegetable and plant life would in time, as we have found, be destroyed, and we will be helpless even so far as our very existence is concerned. When we study the habits of animals in a truly sympathetic way, and become truly acquainted with them and with the work that each one is performing, we shall see that each one has its place in the economy of God's world, that each has its part to play, and that even so far as the animal world is concerned, we are all related and interrelated. If we destroy or permit to be destroyed that marvelous balance which the divine power has instituted in the universe, we do it at our own peril. Instead, then, of being the enemies of the animal world, instead of being its persecutors and its destroyers, we should be its friends and helpers. This I have yet treated. The enduring soul. It would be exceedingly interesting and valuable we had a place in a little volume of this nature to relate numbers of incidents and stories in connection with the lives of various animals. Incidents and stories showing their devotion to those to whom they have become attached and whom they love, their intelligence, their powers of mercy, their discernments and reason. Man is the time that an animal, perhaps the dog especially, has thrown itself into danger to warn from danger or to save the life of a human being, owner, friend, or stranger, without any apparent thought of its own safety or life. It was but a few weeks ago that I noticed among the news items on the editorial page of my daily paper that on a Swiss eminence a monument is to be erected to bury the splendid St. Bernard dog who during his life saved the lives of so many 40 persons. And there are other monuments that I know of erected to commemorate the fidelity or the sacrificial service of animals. How many thousands of monuments, baited at times with grateful tears and allowed by loving memories, have taken form in the mind and hearts of those into whose lives various animals have come. And when we look into its eyes and see the soul of the animal look out upon us with all his love and his fear, his warmth of feeling, his confidence, I'm getting sad because my kitty now is like 11 years old and I wish that he can live forever. I had so many animals that really came and go. They should live longer. And each one of them is in my heart. His confidence, whenever possible, as well as his strange questionings, is it possible for us longer to remain among the company who feel that there is a great gulf fixed, eternally fixed between man and the animal? Many of them live far more consistent and honest lives than we at times live ourselves. Personally, I believe that their endeavor to live true to their various natures and to their guess, even if at times they fall short of it, as we do, is something that will be just as enduring in their lives as in ours, and that they are destined to a continually higher life, the same as each and every one of us. The common father of us all, of the animals, as of ourselves, caused no one of his creatures to be brought into existence in vain, apart mosquitoes, I must add, or for a mere temporary time. Where there is a soul, be it in animal or in human form, it is destined to endure as such, even though the form, the body, with which it is clothed upon and through which it manifests on any particular plane of existence, changes and in time falls away, to give place to a new type of body better adapted to the environment in which it goes. In order to be as concrete as possible, we have been considering concrete cases of carelessness and abuse and torture to the animal world from our ends. But I think we have seen sufficiently clearly already that whenever and every time we sin against or do violence to these, our fellow creatures, we ourselves, in some form or another, reap of the kind that we sow. This is inevitably and invariably true, and there is no escape from it. And so, instead of being their arch enemy, let the children, above all, be taught to become friends to and to care for and protect these their fellow creatures. Let them be taught to give them all his kind words and kind thoughts as well. Some animals are most sensitively organized. They feel and are influenced by our thoughts and our emotions far more generally than we realize, and in some cases even more than many people are. And why should we not recognize and speak to the horse as we pass him in the same way as we do to a fellow human being? While he may not get our exact words, he nevertheless gets and is influenced by the nature of the thought that is behind, and that is the spirit of the words. Let them be taught to become friends in this way. Let them be taught, even though young, to raise the hands against all misuse, abuse and cruelty. Oh! Sorry, but I want to underline this. Let them be taught, even too young, to raise the hand against all misuse, abuse, and cruelty. Let them be taught that the horse, for example, when tired or when his load, oh amore, grazie, is heavy, needs encouragement just as a man or a woman needs it, and that the whip is not necessary, except indeed in cases where he has not been taught to respond to words, not even in that case, but only to the whip. Uh, indeed, because people they were training with the whip and not with the words. The whip is not now used 99 cases out of 100 where it is only necessary, but entirely uncalled for this back in time. Now, nowadays, likely not anymore. An American traveler, when riding, you see, these things said back in time, with time, human anyway evolves. Now we are all on that same kind of thoughts. An American traveler, when riding one day with Tolstoy, noticed that he never made use of a whip when driving and remarked to him to that effect. No, he replied, with a slight spirit of disdain. I told to my horses, I do not beat them. Oh. Let us be taught by and let us carry to the children this good example. Art training. This is the last thing that I will read, even because it's finished the book. These are all the books of Ralph Waldo Trine. Heart training. Were I an educator, I will endeavor to make my influence along the lines of human heart training my chief service to my pupils. The rules and principles and even facts that are taught them will, 9/10 of them at least, by and by be forgotten. But by bringing into their lives this higher influence, at once the root and the flower of all that is worthy of the name education, I will give them something that will place them at once in the ranks of the nobles of the race. I will give not only special attention and time to this human education, but I will introduce it into and cause it to permeate all of my work. A teacher with a little insight will be able to find opportunities on every hand. Mr. de Sailly, an eminent French teacher who for a number of years has been giving systematic human instruction in school, says, I have long been convinced that kindness to animals produces great results, and that it is not only a powerful cause of material prosperity, but also the beginning of moral prosperity. My manner of teaching it does not disturb the routine of the school. 2 days in the week, all our lessons are conducted with reference to this subject. In the reading class, I choose a book upon animals and always give useful instruction and advice. My copies for writing are facts in natural history and ideas of justice and kindness to animals. Good. I prove that by not overworking them and by keeping them in clean and roomy stables, feeding them well, and treating them kindly and gently, a greater profit and larger crops may be obtained. I also speak of birds and certain small animals which are very useful to farmers. The results are exceedingly satisfactory. The children are less disorderly and more gentle and affectionate to each other. They feel more and more kindly to the animals and have ceased to rob nests and kill birds. They are touched by the suffering of animals, and the pain they feel when they see them cruelly used moves others to pity and compassion. Mr. George Angel, president of the American Human Education Society, has said, standing before you as the advocate of the lower races, I declare what I believe cannot be gainsaid. Just so soon and so far as we pour into all our schools the songs, the poems, and literature of mercy towards these lower creatures, just so soon and so far shall we reach the roots not only of cruelty but of crime. 1,000 cases of cruelty can be prevented by kind words and human education for every one that can be prevented by prosecution. And let us hear another sentence or two from another educator. Fellow teachers, let us make our teaching stronger and richer. Let us give our pupils something varied and inviting. Let us reach out more. Let us reach out for and take in human education. Too much so-called teaching is unskilled labor. Too many of us are buried in our textbooks. Our mechanical hearers of lessons are mere word jugglers, fact peddlers, and mind stuffers. Let us put away all these things and teach. Let us put brains and heart into our work. Let us become character builders. Such work will compel people to realize the grandly important truth that teaching is the profoundest science, the highest art, the noblest profession. Then, were I a mother, I would infuse the same human influence into all phases of the child life and growth. Quietly and indirectly, I will make all things speak to him in this language. I will put into his hands books such as Black Beauty, Beautiful Joe, and others of a kindred nature. I will farm in my own village or part of the city, where there are not one, there are already a band of mercy into which my own and neighbors' children will be called. And thus I will open up another little fountain of humanity for the healing of our troubled times. We are recently been at war with another nation. There is today much unrest and uncertainty in connection with our foreign relation and policies back in 1866 is born and past. These matters, vital as they are of but small import compared with the questions and the conflicts in connection with the social situation within our own borders that we shall be compelled squarely to face within the coming few years. The beginning of this time is indeed already at our very doors. The state of affairs referred to, as also its rapidly increasing proportion, is sufficiently well known to all to make it unnecessary for more to be said in regard to it. Many who will have a hand in the solution and adjustment of these matters are now in our school and on our streets. You can hear the opening of my bunnies. And we are educating them. We can educate them to patience, kindness, equity, and reason, or to hot-headedness, rashness, cruelty, and anarchy. And if these questions are not adjusted peaceably and through the influence of the former qualities, then they will be precipitated through conflict and terrific destruction of life and property, as the ends of those of the latter qualities. We have now such agencies as will, in the hands of a small body of hot-headed, heartless men born half a city in a single night. Though one is a wealthy parent, his son may be the poor man and the anarchist. Though another parent is poor, his son may be the millionaire, and one of such a type as to be hated by the great toiling classes. Time has a strange method of changing conditions. Both need to be humanely educated, the one equally with the other, and upon how truly they are so educated will depend the orderly adjustment and peaceable solution of this rapidly coming time. One of the most beautiful and valuable features of the kindergarten education, which comes nearer the true education than any we have yet seen, is the constantly recurring lesson of love, sympathy, kindness, and care for the animal world. All fellowship, thus fostered, and the human sentiments thus inculcated, will return to soften and enrich the child's, and later the man's or the woman's life, 1,000 or 1,000,000-fold. For we must always bear in mind that every kindness shown, every service done, to either a fellow human being or a so-called dumb fellow creature, does us more good than the one or that for which we do it. The joy that comes from this open-hearted fellowship with all living creatures is something too precious and valuable to be given up when once experienced. To feel and to realize the essential oneness of all life is a step up which the world is now rapidly coming. I have to drink a second. There are just more 2 pages. One of the most beautiful and valuable features through ethics is being broadened and deepened, and even religion is being enriched and vitalized. Men in all parts of the world whose thoughts and sympathies have reached this higher plan are giving abundantly of their time to push forward this much belated human element in human life. Others are giving abundantly of their treasure, through which many thousands of human publications are being circulated, homes for animals are being established, human education is being fostered, and the work of the various human organizations is being enlarged in scope and possibilities. Last page. The strongest and noblest types of men and women are never devoid of this tender human sympathy which is ever quick to manifest itself in kindness and care for every living creature. There is a little incident in the life of Lincoln which I found a few days ago in a most valuable little book recently published entitled Songs of a Happy Life. In the early pioneer days, when he was a practicing attorney and rode the circuit, as was the custom at that time, he made one of a party of horsemen, lawyers like himself, who were on their way one spring morning from one court town to another. Their course lay across the prairies and through the timber, and as they passed by a little grove where the birds were singing merrily, they noticed a little fledgling which had fallen from the nest and was fluttering to the roadside. After they had ridden a short distance, Mr. Lincoln stopped and wheeling his horse said, "Wait for me a moment, I will soon rejoin you." And as the party halted and watched him, they saw Mr. Lincoln return to the place, I would have done it too, where the little bird lay helpless on the ground, so he tenderly take it up and set it carefully on a limb near the nest. When he joined his companions, one of them laughingly said, "Why, Lincoln, what did you bother yourself and delay us for with such a trifle as that?" Mean man. The reply deserves to be remembered, and it is for this that I have told the story. "My friend," said Mr. Lincoln, "I can only say this, that I feel better for it." Let us go from this to one other incident in his life. During that famous series of public debates in Illinois with Stephen A. Douglas in 1858, Mr. Douglas at one place said, "I care not whether slavery in the territories be voted up or whether it be voted down. It makes not a particular difference with me." Mr. Lincoln, speaking from the fullness of his great sympathetic heart, replied with emotion, "I am sorry to perceive that my friend Judge Douglas is so constituted that he does not feel the least bit when it is said upon another man's back. Such are the strong, the valiant, the royal men and women, those with this tender soul pathos, loving, caring, feeling for, sympathizing with, both their fellow human beings and their so-called dumb fellow creatures, recognizing that we are all parts of the one great whole, all different forms of the manifestation of the Spirit of infinite life, love, and power that is back of all, working in and through all, the life of all." So much enjoy this man. So this is the book. Ralph Waldo Trine, 10 book collection. I bought it in Italy from Amazon. Is obviously copyright free. So if you are in another country, you will surely find it even online. And anyway, on Amazon, usually there is always. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.